Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is a reading from the weekly newsletter from citedmoon.com. I'll include a link in case you want to just fact check and make sure I'm reading it. So the newsletter is called Passover 5856. That's the year. And the date, the Roman date is March the 6th. And this is the second newsletter of the year 5856. And it's the 11th day of the first month, 5,856 years after the creation of Adam. We're in the fourth sabbatical cycle after the 119th Jubilee cycle. It's the middle of the 70th Jubilee since Jehovah told Moshe or Moses to go get his people. That's a new one. I haven't noticed that before. And it's the sabbatical cycle of the sword, famines, and pestilence. So it begins, Shalom to the royal family of Jehovah. Lashana Tova, brethren. The new year has now begun. Happy New Year. You can say that. Actually, it's 11 days old now, but it is officially the new year. In case some of you did not see my last newsletter about the barley being Aviv, as reported by Becca Biderman, I want to now officially ask Jehovah to bless this year for you. It is going to be a very decisive year for all of us. And there's a link to the spring holy days. So just as a preamble, I usually mention this, but the reason I'm reading these newsletters is because I do find them quite lengthy. And not everyone has the time to just read them in one sitting. I find myself on the road most of the time, not on Sabbath, or Shabbat, but sometimes I'll be in the road, and I just wish someone was able to read this to me, either my passenger, or if there was like an audio version of the newsletters, because I find them so very much like if spirituality was a food, there's milk, there's bread. This is really meaty. I find the newsletters from citedmoon.com so meaty. There's so much there, so much to learn from, so much on prophecy, on history, on Christian living, or just practical things you can do. So anyway, that's why I'm reading it. So hope this helps you. If you have no time to just sit down and read, or you just find this more your cup of tea, to have it delivered in an auditory delivery. Okay, so continuing on, it says here from our emails, that's the heading, a couple of emails from the Mew group, in which Jen is sharing teachings and helping others to understand the sabbatical and Jubilee year cycles. She was sent the following two emails. Just a bit of some windows popping up there. It's a little annoying. Okay. All right, I'm going to just move it up a bit. Hi, Jan. Thank you so much for all the impeachment articles. They are fantastic. Would you be able to send me the teaching on Ophir and any others that you have available, please? Thanks. Shalom. Thank you, Jan, for coming back. I think it means I am. So typo there. I am new to Mew, but I am reading Joe's newsletters from about 2012. Wow. That's what I want to do too. I want to go back in the backlog, save them all, because, if things pan out the way that Joseph Dumont is predicting, then all the information will be kept. But if they don't, then they'll be deleted. And I don't want that. I don't like that scenario. I want to save all the information. Again, I find it very valuable, regardless of whether, what he's projecting is going to come to pass, be fulfilled exactly on the timeline he's saying. So anyway, just continuing on, we are walking this way since 1996, then in South Africa. When my oldest was 18 months, we were just following the Bible and did whatever he asked of us in Scripture. That's a good attitude. Keeping the feast and Sabbath years. We just called ourselves Bible believers because we couldn't put a name to what we believe / fit into until we met a family in 2011 who told us that we are actually Messianic believers. It's always a label. That opened the world for us to Torah teachers and all of a sudden Hebrew / Jewish components. We listened to nearly every teacher available, and although interesting, we stopped doing that after about 2 years. The only one I'm still following is Joe, because he is doing the sabbatical years. It's funny, not funny, but if you really count on your fingers, just on one hand, how many people are teaching, keeping the Shemitah, the sabbatical years? It's probably like maybe 2 at the most. I don't know. Maybe there's probably another person that nobody knows about. The Jubilee cycle is like doing that as well. How many are teaching that? I'd probably say maybe the same number, 2 or less. But it's there. It's explicit there. Explicitly, it's written in Leviticus 25, just 2 chapters after 23, where it outlines all the Moedim, which majority of modern Judaism is keeping or observing based on their calendar. And then you've got the Messianic Hebrew Roots Church of God people also do those. But how many are actually doing it based on the sighted moon? How many groups, how many kind of teachers are teaching that? You could count just on one hand, probably maybe 5 or less. I don't know. That's a rough estimate, but at the most, maybe 5. Anyway, let's keep going. I'm so off track now. We have already done a Sabbath years prior to following him. I think you mean a Shemitah, sabbatical year. I have a fair idea of what Joe is seeing / believing, and I have a gut feeling from the beginning. Oh, Wendell popped up again. I have a gut feeling from the beginning that he is correct, and so do I. I feel the same way. To be honest, I probably wouldn't feel the same way I do today compared to last year, but it's just everything's lining up. It's just coming together like a puzzle. I'm just coming in, and you can see all these events going on around the world. My husband don't read. I think they mean doesn't read. Maybe I'll just read it. My husband don't read the newsletters, but he has read parts of the 2300 Years of Hell. I think it's Days of Hell, not years. Anyway, and I'm telling him bits and pieces. We're planning to work through the charts. So we are really enjoying the Zoom meetings. That's explaining it so well. I'm just going to correct it where it doesn't make sense because it's going to be too hard to understand if I don't. I've also made contact with Pauline, who was about a 4 hours drive from us, and had a really good chat. Hope I get to meet her one day. I have copied and pasted all your impeachments, and we will work through that as well so that he can get a better understanding, talking about her husband. Would you be able to send me the abridged version of 2300 Days, please? I have read it about 5 years ago, but I don't have the time to read the full version again at this stage. I wonder why, but anyway, it's none of my business. I have also read all the other books. If you can send me the summary version of Ophir, I can pass that on to my husband. We are open if we need to go to the Philippines, but like anyone, I want to make the right decision. That's important. I still have 4 children at home and 2 working. So 6 children? Wow. Strongly following this way. Okay. 2 working, strongly following this way. I'm not sure what they mean by that. If they're working on them to follow that way, or are they working as in they're employed? So it is not just as easy as packing a bag and going. What are you going to do? Shabbat Shalom from Australia. There's no answer there, but so I understand Ophir, and I think there's another name, Tarshish. I think they're both Philippines, according to one of the newsletters, and I did my research as well. And I'm also of the opinion that the Philippines is very much Ophir. I think the strongest evidence that you can point to is that the journey from Israel or Jerusalem to Ophir took 3 years by boat. So if it was in Africa or anywhere else, it wouldn't take you 3 years. It would take you at the most, maybe a month or something. It wouldn't take you 3 years. So that is probably the strongest piece of evidence, as well as the items that they returned with, are items that the Philippines are rich in terms of resources. Okay, Kenya update. One of the men we have come to know over the years is Henry Mate of Kenya. He has been learning, or Mate, he has been learning all he can, it's not a typo, all he can about the sabbatical and Jubilee years, and teaching them to his small assembly and also on WhatsApp. Working with Jan Sitzma, I'm not sure if I pronounced the last name right, they have, or the first name either, could be Jan. They have developed other contexts through Facebook and Mew, or Mewe. Jan has been coaching and helping Henry with subjects that Henry asked questions about. I was on my way to Saudi Arabia, March 13, other typos, Saudi, not Saudi, and thought I would fly into Kenya and teach them before I left to Saudi. Then the debate about the barley ensued, another typo, and I thought I would go there first and then to Kenya, after which I would go on my tour to Saudi and Egypt. At the same time, I was trying to book my flights to each place. No, wait. Book my flights, teach each place, and arrange all this travel. Okay, this sentence is making sense. I was trying to book my flights, okay, and arrange all this travel. News came out that Saudi had closed their borders to religious pilgrims. Then Israel closed theirs and then opened them up again. Just put my feet on this. I need to put my feet up. Just give me a minute. Like, get something to put my feet on. It is Shabbat. It's nice to relax. Okay, where are we? Open them up again. Okay. This was the time the coronavirus was spreading in South Korea and Italy like wildfire. And it continues to spread. The numbers are pretty much doubling every day, every 2 days, 2.4 days to be exact. Time was running out, and I had to decide what I was going to do. I was concerned for those I had invited on the trip to Saudi and felt they were coming because I was going. Oh, okay. My fear got the better of me. I was afraid we could be detained for 14 days in Israel or Kenya or Ethiopia or Saudi Arabia or Jordan or Egypt, should anyone on the plane with me show signs of the flu. Anyone. People from Italy were turned away from Israel after landing, the whole plane. And that's smart. I have to agree with that. Standing in lines in so many airports in these many countries weighed heavily on me. I would not know who was and was not a carrier, and you won't know for 40 days. And I could then bring the sickness home to my family. So I notified all the people I had made arrangements to meet in each of these countries and our tour guide that I was canceling all of my travel plans. I could not take the many variables. I could not take the many variables I had no control over. Henry sent me this report just before I made this decision to no longer go. Just have a sip. Last Saturday, February 22nd, I was a guest speaker at Kariati Remnant Assembly of Yahweh in Kubu, Meru country. We had been invited by the brethren there, led by Pastor Josaphat Mutai from Kericho and the local Pastor Zablon. Zablon had earlier visited in January at our synagogue, Beth Shalom Torah Center at Kibugua Muiku in Tharaka, Nephi County, to learn about Torah and sabbatical/Jubilee years. He was accompanied by his friend Isaiah. We had a very wonderful, fulfilling chat, I think he means chat, about Torah and the timeline from Adam. As I was about to start my trip, I was informed about the presence of their bishop. As I wasn't aware of it, I wondered what I was expected from them and their expectations. I prayed for the moment, and Jehovah assured of peace in myself. I was about to meet amongst the congregation, their bishop, for the first time. Reaching there Saturday morning with my company brethren, Markless Ndeke, James Mate, Mutegi, and my grandson Karani, I got shocked to meet in person Bishop Thomas. It happened that Thomas and I knew one another for long as Facebook friends, and he had been following my teachings for long. Yeah, it's quite, when you meet someone that you only know online, it's quite an experience. It happened to me, especially those in the faith. You're kind of shocked as to how people look and how they sound. So it was my first time to meet Pastor Josaphat. We had been friends on Facebook also. We immediately fell for one another. They welcomed us cordially, and saints were very hospitable. Immediately after we arrived, 9 a.m., I was invited to teach. It then happened they had organized a marathon schedule that managed to accomplish. Okay. It happened I had to spend the night there until Sunday. The order stayed on. I'm going to read this fast because I want to get to the teaching part. The order stayed none among the people missed any session. Not even the women or children left. Wow, that's good. They stood to learn more and more. Oh, they stayed put. I think that's what it means. Neither did I tire. It was so wonderful. Sunday morning, I had to answer a myriad of questions concerning my faith. They said the teachings, being somewhat new to them, they needed to learn, to know, and return to the way. Wow, that's great. That's inspirational. I had the rare chance and taught 6 lessons, among them Desire of the Nations. Saturday morning, I introduced Torah, sabbatical Jubilee years, and curses in corroboration with timeline since Adam. So I find that really impressive that someone can just teach these things, where when I attempt to do that on YouTube, I become so vague. I don't know if I could teach something so specific. Maybe I could. I don't know. I just don't feel that's in me, but it's not really up to me, is it? Before we broke for lunch break, Markless teaching wondered whether locusts have ever been spotted in the area. Okay. He taught that we won't leave before they experience the curse. True to the word, as we sat at lunch table under shadow of plantains, a big swarm of locusts flew over us in the sky northward without touching any vegetation. Wow. That's pretty miraculous. That's kind of like, reminds me of Exodus, where Yah says, you will see that I put a difference between the children of Israel and the Egyptians, the Mitzrayites. And, some plagues affected both, and then some didn't. They only affected the Egyptians. And if that's true, if his account is exactly as he says, and I have no reason to doubt him, that's a miracle. Kariati is in South Imenti, near the MP Kathuri, Morongi home area, and they flew towards central Imenti. That proved true, what I had taught, and what is said in Torah in Leviticus 26. After that interlude, I taught Daniel 9:24-27 prophecy, which has been taught in error by those of Messianic persuasion as Messianic prophecy. Yep. Als lead the step to step. Okay, there's a big typo here. I don't know what that means. Anyway, I'll continue on. We embark on by observing the Shabbat. This being taking oath, sevening. Oh, Shabbat. Okay. So the teaching is on sevening ourselves. In the night section, Saturday, I took the podium to teach about the 430 years in the Exodus. Sunday started as it was previously. I was requested to teach on prayer, shawl, I think shawl, and the tzitzit I was wearing. I had expected the question. I had to remind them about the covenant in Mount Sinai. We went together studying Numbers 15. After lunch Sunday, the bishop and pastors, being overwhelmed by the message of truth, welcomed me to go teach on March 3rd. They informed me to stay ready. Okay, I'm going to just scan through this. It's kind of not what I want to cover in this newsletter video, but I'll try to hit the highlights. The time is nearly over. Being in the middle of the 70th week, it means little time remains, actually 24 years. The work is huge. Everyone needs to do his or her part, needs special attention. Agreed? I and Joshphat hinted on Joe's coming to Kenya. We wish Joe would stay and be here for 4 to 5 days. They are so enthusiastic to be taught and be led to the wedding feast. The men wanted printed materials so they may read and use as teaching manuals. I gave out the 2 calendars I had printed from SM Page. Okay. I gave Zablon one and the other to the man from a sister remnant congregation. The request for tzitzit. I notice a lot of Jews in my area say zitzit, but tzitzit, I say zitzit. I think that's the proper way to pronounce it. I gave the 4 pairs I had to 4 men teachers. Well, so I guess each one got 1 tzitzit. Pretty cool. It's exciting when you first get when you get your first pair or your first tzitzit. It's an experience. Although it's physical, it's still exciting. Excuse me. It included the ones I wore. I gave it out. Wow. And since they wanted material, I directed them to SM and BSTM web pages. I don't know what that means. We left for home late in the afternoon. As we were in the vehicle, we could see locusts zooming about in farms. Oh man. I'm stressing the readiness for these people to know the truth. I enjoyed the whole period of my stay. Glory be to Jehovah. Actually says Yod-Heh-Vaveh. Best regards to Sighted Moon, Joe Duman, Jan, and team. Let me appreciate the Thomas, Pastor Zablon, and Josphat. I think it's Bishop Thomas. BSTM, BSTC salutes you all. The world needs you. Wow, that's pretty dramatic there. I like that last line. Update from me. I think this is Joseph. I want to say thank you for all the emails and phone calls I've received this past week from you, the brethren, from around the world. Thank you for your encouragement and support. Some of you saw the stress I was under with our searching the testimonies of the Aviv searchers, as well as preparing for our Saudi tour and the coronavirus plague pandemic. I hope we cancel that trip because it's not safe there. Your prayers do mean a lot, and I do not know who it is. Those of you praying for my wife and family, please do not stop. Things are happening combined with the coronavirus news. They're asking questions and allowing me to explain. Wow. So thank you, and thank you, Jehovah. I have canceled my participation in the Mount Sinai tour. That was to start next week. Most of those who signed up are still going. Do keep them in your prayers. Yeah, that's a wise decision not to go. My travel plans were to go to Israel to check the barley, and then to Kenya for Passover, and then to Addis Ababa to catch a flight to Riyadh. The tour was then to drive from Saudi Arabia to Jordan to catch a ferry to Nuweiba, Egypt. And some would then fly from Egypt to Turkey to see Noah's Ark and then fly home. The more I watched the coronavirus reports, the more anxious I became, until I could no longer think about going through that many airports at this time, with so many others also passing through them and not knowing who would and would not be sick in the airport or on the plane. My fear of being quarantined in one of these countries in a room for 14 days, or coming home to infecting my family because someone on the plane was sick, was too much and I also wanted to give, I think he means too much for me, and I also wanted to give those on the tour the opportunity to also check out. Yeah, no, that's smart, because if I was thinking of going, and I was not, but say I was, and I knew Joseph backed out, I wouldn't go. Like, what's the point? A few did not, but a few did check out of the trip, but most did not, so they're going ahead with it. So I'll be home conducting services for those who are new and those who have no groups to attend with this Passover season. I will be conducting the foot washing service Monday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Time Zone. Tuesday is preparation day, and I'll conduct a service for 9 a.m. And 3 p.m. on the 14th. Wow. So 2 services? It's pretty cool. The High Holy Day of Wednesday, March the 10th, I will also conduct another service at 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Whoa. I'm so happy, actually. Then on Wave Sheaf Day, we will do the wave offering at 9 a.m. Whoa. More good news. Finally, on the last day of unleavened bread, we will again do a service at 3 p.m. Oh, just one. I will post the Zoom meeting room here with each service. So come back to get them, as I just have no time now to prepare them. So that's great, because I was, with the coronavirus concerns, as Joseph said, personally, I've stopped attending my congregation that I usually go to number one, not risk infecting others in case I have it, because for 40 days you are asymptomatic. You will spread it and you don't know because there are no signs. And second of all, in case someone else has it, I won't get it. But so it's a dual purpose there. Enough about that. A monthly reusable calendar. You can download and keep track of each holy day in the month and even the year from our reusable monthly sheets. I think there are 3 E's there. Just download them at this link, and there's a link there, sightedmoon.com /monthly-calendar-PDF/ and then another link. So this calendar you can keep like erasing, or actually you can't really erase it. You might have to print it out. But it's very concise. It has everything you need to know there. And you just plug in the dates, the numbers. Oh, this is good. This is great, because I was going to do a video on this. Now I don't have to do it. It's already here in the newsletter. So this is to answer the questions of some of the people who have been commenting on my videos. Why do I put the year 5855, now 5856? And here's the answer. We're going to go get into it right now, live and on demand. Okay. The year of 5856 versus the Jewish year of 5780. I have to stress there, the traditional Jewish year, not the biblical year. It's based on traditions. So here we go. This year, on the Jewish calendar, at the Feast of Trumpets in September 30, 2019, it has become the year 5780 since the creation. Many people look at this and think that we have 220 years until the 6,000th year, 6,000th, that's a tongue twister there, 6,000th year, and then go back to sleep. But is this correct? Here at Sighted Moon, we are saying that the year is in actuality 5855, actually 5856 now, and that it changes on Aviv 1 each year according to Exodus 12, verse 2. You can read that yourself in your own Bible. At Aviv in 2020, it will be the year 5856. So we are always going to be about 76 years apart in our dating. Why? Now, this is very misleading to the average person. The Jewish calendar fails to mention that they have removed 76 years from the calendar. This was done in Matthew chapter 1, verse 8, where the names of Ahaziah, who reigned 1 year, and Athaliah, who reigned 6, and Jehoash, who reigned 40, and Amaziah, who reigned 29, are all missing from the chronology, 76 years in total. So you can read that for yourself, Matthew chapter 1, verses 7 to 9, the lineage of kings. Compare the biblical list with the actual kings of Judah list below, and take note of which ones are missing and which ones are included, and then ask why. So I feel like I need to do something at this point. I'm gonna plug in my laptop into my TV so you can look along with me. So just please bear with me as I do that. This plug. This the other plug, the longer plug. Found it. Okay. Oh boy, why did I do that? Okay. Didn't expect to have to do this, but just for a good visual aid for those who are watching, and then follow along the actual graph, the diagram here. Let's plug that in on the camera too. See what we see. See if we were seeing the same thing. Want to zoom in a little bit. All right. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to take a quick look and see if you are seeing what I am seeing. The live stream. Let's take a quick look. Okay, yeah. Okay, so there's a screen behind me. I'm going to try to move a little bit, and where am I looking at? Passover. There it is. There it is. Okay. So Kings of Judah, right. So compare the biblical list with the actual Kings of Judah list below, and take note of which ones are missing and which ones are included. And then we're going to ask why, or ask yourself why. So Kings of Judah. Okay, the first one, Rehoboam, 933, 916. I'll just read the names. Abijah, Rabiah, Asa, Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, Ahaziah, Athaliah, Joash, Amaziah, Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, Manasseh, Amon, Josiah, Ahaz, Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, Zedekiah. What was it that these kings did to anger Jehovah so? we can read in Deuteronomy 29:20, where Jehovah threatened to blot out the names of those who served other gods. Oh, that's actually makes sense. And Exodus, actually, I know this, but it's good to review. In Exodus 20, verse 5, it says that the sins of the people will be visited to the third and fourth generations of those who hate him. So you can read that. Deuteronomy 29, verses 16 to 20. And then Exodus 20, verses 4 to 6. Okay, I'm going to get my scriptures and just... Oh, it's right here. Okay. So I don't fall over. I'm going to look it up and see what it says. It's to prove whether it's true. Deuteronomy 29. Okay. Deuteronomy 29. Reading from the Septuagint, Brenton Septuagint. Deuteronomy 29. Sorry. Deuteronomy 29. Verse 20 reads, Elohim shall by no means be willing to pardon him, but then the wrath of Jehovah and his jealousy shall flame out against that man. Whoa. Wow. Does it say that there too? Smoke against that man. Okay, well, flame sounds more deadly. And then we read here, and all the curses of this covenant shall attach themselves to him. Oh, that's gross. Okay, lying on him is still bad, but they're going to attach themselves to him. Like, you can't get rid of it, which are written in this book. And Jehovah shall blot out, it says, so it corroborates what it's saying, shall blot out his name from under heaven. Wow, that is really, you don't want to be in that position. Okay. What wicked king could this be? From the list above, we can see that something must have happened to Ahaziah. So let's begin with him. When we look at this, we can also see how the house of Jehovah fell into ruin, and that Joash was going to restore the house and repair it. So Joash repairs his temple. 2 Chronicles 24, verses 1 to verses 1 to 16. Okay, great. So you can read that on your own time. But essentially, you want to look at verse 7, and the sons of Athaliah, they broke up the house of Elohim. So let's look that up. Just gonna double check and just we'll focus on that verse for now. The highlighted verse, or the bold verse 24. It says here, for Gothaliah was a transgressor. Okay, so just different spelling. And her sons tore down the house of Elohim, and they offered the holy things of the house of Jehovah to Baalim. Ooh, okay. Take note of what was said in verse 7, okay, which we just read. This was why the people of Lebanon revolted. Before we find out who this Athaliah was, we have just read how Joash was the one who was a good king and served Jehovah. Now let's turn to 2 Kings 8 and find out what preceded these evil things. And it turns out that Jehoram was an evil king who produced a lineage of evil kings. Wow. So 2 Kings chapter 8 verses 16 to 24. You can read that in your own time. We have just learned that the Edomite revolted from Jewish rule. I think Edomites, maybe the Edomites, might be plural. But we also learned that Libnah also revolted. It was not an Edomite city. Libnah was one of the cities of the Aaronic priests. And there's a reference to JOS. What is JOS? How come I don't know that? Is there a prophet Josiah? Oh, lots of stuff falling out of my... Just going to put that on the floor really gently. I don't know if there's a book, Josiah, JOS. Maybe it's Joshua. Joshua 21, 13. Let's look at that quick. 21, 13. It says here, and to the sons of Aaron, Aharon, he gave the city of refuge for the slayer Hebron, and the suburbs belonging to it, and Lebna or Libnah, and the suburbs belonging to it. So there you go. Something has happened to cause the Libnah people to revolt. Obviously, they objected violently to Jehoram's desecration of Solomon's temple. For Joram's blasphemy, Jehovah judged not only his wife Athaliah, but his son Ahaziah and grandson Joash, and great-grandson Amaziah. So Ahaziah reigns in Judah, 2 Kings chapter 8, verses 25 to 29. So basically they did evil in the sight of Yah. And then there's a note here. It says, Athaliah is usually considered the daughter of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel of Israel. I didn't know that. Athaliah was married to Jehoram of Judah to seal a treaty between the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. So she's of Israel, okay. And to secure his position, Jehoram killed his 6 brothers. Jehoram became king of Judah in the 5th year of Jehoram of Israel's reign. So there's 2 Jehorams. It's kind of confusing. Jehoram of Israel was Athaliah's brother, or possibly nephew. Wait a minute. Okay. Interesting. Jehoram of Judah reigned for 8 years. His father, Jehoshaphat, and grandfather Asa were devout kings, who worshipped Jehovah, or Yahweh, it says here, and walked in his ways. However, Jehoram chose not to follow their example, but rejected Yah and married Athaliah. Oh no. The daughter of Ahab in the line of Omri. Jehoram's rule of Judah was shaky. Edom revolted, and he was forced to acknowledge their independence. A raid by Philistines, Arabs, and Ethiopians looted the king's house and carried off all of his family except for their youngest son, Ahaziah. After Jehoram's death, Ahaziah became king of Judah, and Athaliah was queen mother. Ahaziah reigned for 1 year, from the age of 22. 2 Kings 8:26. Let's just double check that. Just want to fact check that age. Let's just see. I know it seems trivial, but let's just see if it lines up. Sometimes numbers are off because I just recently realized I was reading a chapter and it says everyone from ages 30 and up, but then when I read in the Septuagint it said 25 and up. So there's a clear discrepancy there. 2 Kings 8, verse 26. Okay. Age of 22. Let's see. 26. No, that's the wrong. 2 Kings 8, verse 26. I don't see it here. Must be different. Might be 1 Kings 8. Oh, I think I know why. Because 2 Kings is actually 4th Kings. There is no book of Samuel in the older Bibles. So it's actually 4th Kings 8 and verse 26. So yeah, 22 years old was Ochozias when he began to reign. Okay, so he was 22. He was killed during a state visit to Israel along with Jehoram of Israel. Jehu assassinated them both in Yah's name and became king of Israel. He had Athaliah's entire extended family in Samaria put to death, ending the Omri dynasty in Israel. Wow. Actually, I remember Jehu as a righteous king. So I know it sounds horrible what he did, but I believe that was done in righteous indignation. Like there was a justification for that. Upon hearing the news of Ahaziah's death, Athaliah seized the throne of Judah and ordered the execution of all possible claimants to the throne, including the remnant of her Omri dynasty. However, Yehosheba, Ahaziah's sister, managed to rescue from the purge one of Athaliah's grandsons, with Jehoram of Judah, named Jehoash, who was only 1 year old. Wow. Jehoash was raised in secret by Yehosheba's husband, a priest named Jehoiada. So she wanted to kill anyone who could possibly take the throne from her. As queen, Athaliah used her power to establish the worship of Baal in Judah. 6 years later, Athaliah was surprised when Jehoiada revealed that Jehoash lived and proclaimed him king of Judah. She rushed to stop the rebellion but was captured and executed. Ooh. Daughter or sister of Ahab? Gustave Doré, The Death of Athaliah. There are several scriptures that, when combined with chronological considerations, have led some scholars to hold that she was Ahab's sister, not his daughter. The relevant scriptural texts that can be cited to support the brother-sister relationship are the following. 2 Kings 8:26. It says, and the parallel passage, 2 Chronicles 22, verse 2, say that Jehoram of Judah married a daughter of Omri, Ahab's father. The word daughter can mean daughter, granddaughter, or any female descendant, in the same way that Ben can mean son, grandson, or any male descendant. Cool. Okay. Oh, Bath. The word daughter is Bath, or Bat. Consequently, some modern versions translate that Athaliah was a granddaughter of Omri, but the books of Kings and Chronicles give far more attention to Ahab than to Omri. Okay, they give more attention to, right. And so it is notable that in these verses, it is not Athaliah's relationship to Ahab that is stressed, but her relationship to Omri. This would be reasonable if Omri were her father. Then immediately following verses, the immediate following verses also discuss Ahab, again raising the question of why her relationship to Omri is mentioned instead of Ahab. 2 Kings 8:27 says that Jehoram of Judah, Athaliah's husband, was related by marriage, Hatan, to the house of Ahab. The word Hatan commonly is used to specify a father-in-law or son-in-law relationship. If Jehoram was Ahab's son-in-law, the expression that would be expected here would be, would be son-in-law or relative by marriage to Ahab, not to the house of Ahab. If Athaliah was Ahab's sister, not his daughter, then there is an explanation for the additional phrase house of. The support for Athaliah being Ahab's daughter comes from two verses, 2 Kings 8:18 and 2 Chronicles 21:6. These verses say that Jehoram of Judah did wickedly because he married a daughter of Ahab. This would seem to settle the question in favor of the daughter relationship, with one precaution. The Syriac version of 2 Chronicles 21:6 says sister of Ahab instead of daughter. Okay, let's look in the Septuagint, see what it says about that verse. 2 Chronicles 21, verse 6. He walked in the way of the kings of Israel, as did the house of Ahab, for a daughter of Ahab was his wife. So it's a daughter of Ahab. So that's what it says in the Septuagint. This textual support for Athaliah being the sister of Ahab is usually regarded as weak enough to justify translating Bath in 2 Kings 8:26 and 2 Chronicles 22, verse 2 as granddaughter, thus bringing the various passages about Athaliah into harmony. She is presented as Omri's granddaughter and Ahab's daughter. So let's, you know what, I probably should look at those other parallel verses. 2 Chronicles 22:2. His mother's name was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri. So Athaliah is the daughter of Omri in 2 Chronicles 22. And then 2 Kings 8:26. Let's look at that. It's actually 4 Kings 8:26. And it says here, the name of his mother was Athaliah, daughter of Omri, king of Israel. So, but then it also says in 2 Chronicles 21:6 that she's a daughter of Ahab. So I'm going to go by the Septuagint. She is a daughter of Ahab, not a sister of Ahab. Keep in mind you have two Jehorams here. One, the son of Ahab, who is wounded, and the other, the son of Jehoshaphat. Let's continue to the story so you can see the evil of this time. Okay, I'm just going to see how long we've been going on for. 53 minutes. Okay, so we are about not halfway yet, so it's going to be another hour and a bit. Okay, I'll try to get through this a bit quicker. So 2 Kings chapter 9, verses 1 to 1 to 37. So we just saved ourselves a big chunk of time there. You can read that on your own time. And then we have a list now. Kings of Israel and Kings of Judah. Let's just see if you can see that behind me. Okay. Here it is. You can see the list. And we're focusing on the king. Where's that? Athaliah. So Jehoash would be 843 to 803. So the corresponding one here would be Jehu and Jehoahaz. There's another Yehoahaz there. Another one there. No, that's the same one. Okay. Can be a little confusing. You will notice that King Jehoram of Israel. King Jehoram. Okay, where is that? That would be him, right? Joram. 854 to 843. Called Joram in the chart above, and Jehoram, king of Judah, and Ahaziah, king of Judah, all died in 843 of the same year. So Jehoram, king of Judah, and Ahaziah. So there he is, Joram. We're looking for Jehoram, king of Judah. Right there. Died in 843. He died in 843. The last one is Ahaziah, king of Judah. Yeah, he died in 843. So they all did. Now we must read the next chapter in 2 Kings 10. 2 Kings 10 to learn something else. So 2 Kings 10 verses 1 to 36. You can read that on your own time. Notice what Jehovah says to Jehu about his son until the 4th generation. So 4 Kings 10. Verse 30. What does he say about his son, Jehu's son? And Jehovah said to you, Jehu, you, because of all your deeds wherein you have acted well in doing that which was right in my eyes. So I told you he was a good king. According to all things which you have done to the house of Achab, as they were in my heart, your sons to the 4th generation shall sit upon the throne of Israel. But Jehu took no heed to walk in the law, the Torah of Jehovah Elohim of Israel, with all his heart. He departed not from following the sins of Jeroboam, who made Israel to sin. In those days Jehovah began to cut Israel short, and Azel smote them in every coast of Israel, from Jordan eastward all the land of Gilead, belonging to the Gadites. Okay, so it says here that he didn't do it. But he did, but he didn't. Maybe it's a different Jehu. Okay, let's see. Let's find out. Jehovah is blessing him unto the 4th generation, while at the same time he is about to blot out the names of 4 kings or 4 generations in the house of Judah. And all of this is taking place at this same time, during the time of Elijah. Wow. Now do not forget who this Athaliah is. She is the daughter of Omri and the wife of Jehoram, the mother of Ahaziah, both of whom were killed in 843 BC. 2 Kings, 2 Kings chapter 11, verses 1 to 21, and then continuing 2 Kings 12, verses 1 to 21, and then going on to 2 Kings 14, verses 1 to 22. So you can read that on your own time. This Ahaziah was also called Uzziah in 2 Kings 15:13, and is the Ozias of Matthew 1:8. Here are the reigns for each of these 4 kings again. Ahaziah reigned 1 year. Athaliah reigned 6 years. Joash reigned 40 years, so 47 years. Amaziah reigned 29 years, so 47 plus 20, 67, 67 plus 9, 76. Having now shown where the 76 years went missing, the question arises, are we in the year 5780, as Judah claims, or as the Jews claim? Or is it really 5855, as shown to us in the Jubilee cycles, leaving us 25 years to the conclusion of the 120th Jubilee cycle? 25 years, not a lot of time. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's a lot of time if you're a child and you have your future in front of you and time seems limitless. But it's not a lot of time if you are maybe someone older and time goes by so fast and preparing your house in order, getting things in order, getting your life in order before the Great Tribulation, before it becomes, too late, I guess. De-leavening your home, new subtitle, new heading. With this newsletter, you will now know whether or not the barley is aviv and going to be ready for Passover in 2 weeks' time. We will also begin to celebrate the 7 days of unleavened bread. We read in Matthew 24:45, who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his master made ruler over his household, to give them food in due season? Are you that faithful servant who is going to keep the holy days at the proper time? Are you that faithful servant who is going to feed the flock manna in due season? So, with the Passover season approaching, and with many new people learning the Torah and wanting to keep the holy days, we shall begin now to teach on these. Once again, I'm telling you to turn off Oprah and Dr. Phil and to start to read your Bible. I watch neither. There is nothing on TV worth watching. That's true. Many of you are sharing this newsletter. I'm doing it right now, live on live on YouTube. Many of you are sharing this newsletter and encouraging others to read it. I definitely do. I encourage others to read it, but for those who have no time to read it or just for some reason cannot read, that's why I'm doing this. And to prove these things said here are true or false. And that's why I look it up here and see, is it true or false? I do thank you. You're welcome. But in reality, it is those who have come here and learned the truth that are thanking you. Wait, it is those who have come here and learned, okay, they're thanking me. You have saved their lives. Wait, who? But once you have been turned onto the truth, do not just read what is written here. Search other sites and other groups and learn also from them what is true and what is not true. Wow, that's really... you don't hear that from other websites. Like you go to a group or some kind of movement, they'll almost never say, search other sites and other groups and learn also from them what is true and what is not. That's striking to me, because that's showing that he's of an attitude that he isn't saying that he has all the truth and no one else has anything, that you can't learn from. But that's a really good attitude to have. So I definitely commend Joseph for saying that, for writing that. So we have saved their lives. I don't know how I did that, but okay, I'll take it. I keep telling you how little time is left. And so I'm trying to give you as much information as I can without you being overwhelmed. Turn off the TV, and this will help. Well, I'm not going to turn off this TV. I'll leave that on because it's showing the newsletter. So on the very same day as Passover comes, the first festival that begins to show us the plan of salvation that Jehovah has revealed to us to understand. After Yehoshua is sacrificed as the Passover lamb, and the penalty or debt for our sins paid for, or us being redeemed. How do we continue to avoid sin? How do we continue to avoid sin? Since we must go on living in this newness of life, how do we live as Jehovah's redeemed people? When we consider just how great a price was paid for this redemption of us, how can we return to sin again? We find the remarkable answer in the symbolism of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. When Jehovah freed Israel from slavery in Egypt, he told his people that for 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. Exodus 12:15. Verse 39 further explains, and they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they had brought out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were driven out of Egypt and could not wait, nor had they prepared provisions for themselves. I don't think I need to double check that one. The leavening process which makes bread rise takes time. The Israelites had no time to spare when they left Egypt, so they baked and ate flatbread. What started out as a necessity continued for a week. Jehovah appropriately named this time the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Leviticus 23:6, or Days of Unleavened Bread, Acts 12:3. When Jehovah came to earth as a human, Jehovah saves, he observed the 7-day festival, sometimes called the Feast of Passover by the Jews because of the proximity of the Passover to the days of unleavened bread. Passover is the meal that is eaten to begin the 7-day feast. Yeshua kept it as a child and later as an adult. And there's references there, Luke 2:41, Luke 2:41, Matthew 26:17. The early church kept it as well. Excuse me. So are Christians not keeping this feast also? Jehovah gave his earliest instructions concerning this festival to the Israelites as they prepared to leave Egypt. Okay, I'm going to read this from the Septuagint, Exodus 12. And I'll just keep looking back and forth. And if there's any differences, I will take note. I'll mention it. So, Exodus 12, there's verses 14 to 16. Okay. And this day shall be to you a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to Jehovah through all your generations. You shall keep it a feast for a perpetual ordinance. "7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and from the first day you shall utterly remove leaven from your houses." So utterly remove, that's a big difference here. Utterly remove. "Whoever shall eat leaven, that soul shall be utterly destroyed from Israel, from the first day until the 7th day." So it's a little more harsh sounding in the Septuagint, whereas in the Masoretic it just says, whoever eats something with yeast in it will be cut off from Israel. But here it says that that soul shall be utterly destroyed. Basically, you're going to kill him. Okay, and the last verse says, "And the first day shall be called set apart or holy, and the 7th day shall be a set apart convocation to you. You shall do no servile work on them, only as many things as will necessarily be done by every soul. This only shall be done by you." And that's understood to mean the work that is done to eat your food. So you're cooking or preparing your food. That's the only work you could do on the feast day that is permissible. This is where we get the expression of spring cleaning from de-leavening our homes. Each year, as the Israelites observed this feast, it reminded them of Jehovah's deliverance of their forefathers from Egypt. The Creator instructed, celebrate the Feast of Unleavened Bread, because it was on this very day that I brought your divisions out of Egypt. And I just want to mention in passing, this isn't part of the newsletter, but yeah, it's true. I spoke with some people who were Canadian for many generations, going back many generations, and they said this has been a Canadian tradition, spring cleaning, but it has its roots in the British tradition of spring cleaning. So it's really a British tradition or practice that has remained in Canada via the British. But where did they get that from? Obviously, if you understand it correctly, they are the descendants, physical descendants of the of Israel. And so de-leavening is a practice that has roots in the Torah. And that's one of the few things that the British still have preserved up to this day. And it is very much a sign of their lineage, or a proof that harkens back to scriptures, or to a time where they were practicing and living by the Torah. And, growing up, we practiced that spring cleaning thing because we thought everyone did it, but apparently not. It's only it's a tradition that we picked up living in Canada, and that was adopted from the British, and the British adopted it from their ancestors, who were the ancient Israelites. Okay, the end. Continuing on. The exodus from Egypt remains as a fundamental, the exodus from Egypt remains as a foundational reason for observing this feast today, just as Jehovah delivered ancient Israel. He delivers us from our sins and difficulties. Now notice Yeshua's teaching about leaven, which expands the meaning of this feast. During Yeshua's ministry, he performed 2 miracles in which a few fish and loaves of bread fed thousands of people. After one of these incidents, when his disciples had gone around the Sea of Galilee, they forgot to bring bread with them. So Yeshua told them, "Watch out and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees." The disciples thought Yeshua was referring to their lack of bread. However, he was using the occasion to teach them by calling on the symbolism of leaven. Yeshua asked them, "How is it that you do not understand that I did not speak to you concerning bread? But beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees." Then the disciples understood that he did not say to beware of the leaven of bread, but of the teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Matthew 16, 5-12. Some of the members of the religious establishment of Yeshua's day appeared to be righteous, yet they secretly practiced sinful behavior. Yeshua let them know. He knew their hearts. They may have appeared righteous to other people, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Matthew 23:28. The days of unleavened bread remind us that with Jehovah's help, we must remove and avoid all types of sin symbolized by leaven in all areas of our life. And that's why I've been preaching. Even in my coronavirus videos, I'm saying we have to repent of our sins. We can't just keep living the way you're living. Whoever you are, I don't care what your religion is. I don't care, you know, what your past history is or what sins you've committed. It is time for us to, this is a wake-up call. What's going on in our world is a wake-up call for us to, God is giving us time. Our Father is giving us a wake-up call to stop living the way we're living and to change our lives for the better. So, symbolically, we do this by cleaning our homes and our places of business and our cars and removing any bread or bread products that contain leaven or yeast from them. During the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Apostle Paul taught the same spiritual lessons as Yoshua, invoking the comparison of sin to leaven. In the context of reprimanding the Corinthian congregation for its divisions, jealousies, and tolerance of sexual misconduct, Paul wrote, "Your glorying is not good. Do you not know that a little leaven leavens the whole lump? Therefore purge out the old leaven, that you may be a new lump, since you truly are unleavened. For indeed, Yeshua, our Passover, was sacrificed for us. Therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, nor with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth." 1 Corinthians 5, 6-8. The church at Corinth was obviously and unmistakably keeping the feast of unleavened bread, to which Paul repeatedly alluded. However, Paul used the Corinthians' faithful obedience in keeping the feast physically, removing leaven from their homes, as a basis to encourage them to celebrate this feast with the proper understanding of its spiritual intent. Today, removing leaven from our homes for 7 days reminds us that we, too, through prayer and Jehovah's help and understanding, must recognize, expel, and avoid sin. The Feast of Unleavened Bread is thus a time of personal reflection. We should meditate on our attitudes and conduct and ask Jehovah to help us recognize and overcome our shortcomings. The 7 days represent the 7 millennial days. This is showing us that we should be removing sin. That is not keeping the commandments. Or that means not keeping commandments. Not keeping the holy days and sabbatical and jubilee years, and having other gods that we then serve. Those things found in the 10 Commandments. 1 John 3:4, everyone who makes a practice of sinning also practices lawlessness. Sin is lawlessness. Sin is the act of not keeping the commandments. You know what? I'm going to get my other Bible just to, not that I don't believe, I'm pretty sure it lines up. I just want to see what it says. Okay. All right, so where's that scripture again? 1 John 3, verse 4. Okay. 1 John 3, verse 4. Okay, I'm wearing my hood just so I don't get sick. It's not to look like someone in the Bible or anything like that. My mom saw me and she said, "You look like Moses." Anyway, 1 John 3, 4. Everyone who lives sinfully is living in violation of law. Okay, everyone who lives sinfully is living in violation of the Torah. So that's what it says in the Westcott and Hort. Sin is violation of Torah. So if you practice sinning, you violate the Torah. Because I mean, there's a difference. I just want to make a distinction that if you don't keep the commandments, if you just don't do anything and you're idle, I think there's a difference between violating the Torah versus just not doing anything. So, for example, thou shalt not kill, and you shall not hate. Spiritual intent. So I could just not kill and not hate, right? But so I'm just not doing anything at all. But if I'm actively killing and hating, then yeah, I'm violating it. So there's a difference there. I think I don't know if it's a good example, but anyway. Sin is the act of not keeping commandments. Sin is not keeping the fourth commandment or any of the others. Right. So wait, I'm trying to find a really good example of somebody of like a sin that you can do or not really do, but just by simply omitting it doesn't mean you're sinning. So let's say the third commandment: you shall not take the name of Jehovah your Elohim and turn it to nothing. Take it in vain, basically meaning you claim to be a believer, you acknowledge Jehovah as your Elohim, and people, your reputation is such that you're a follower of this way, and you live in such a way, you speak in such a way, people can tell that you're not bringing glory to it, and thus the reputation of your Elohim, Yahweh, or Jehovah is ruined. You bring his name into nothing, you drag it down the mud. So if I don't know any better, and I claim to be a follower of God, or believe in the Bible, but I'm just not bringing his name through the mud. I'm just not really doing much in that area in terms of bringing glory to his name. So I'm not really breaking the law, but I'm not actively dragging his name through the mud either and making his reputation to nothing. So maybe that's a closer, probably a better example than what I used. All right. Yeah, we are to stop being lawless and to start to keep the commandments. Paul spoke of this much needed self-reflection in 2 Corinthians 13:5 when he told the Corinthian church. And let's just look in here, 2 Corinthians. We're at the home stretch. We're going to wrap up probably in 30 minutes or less than that. Corinthians in this Bible is not where it usually is. It is after Galatians in this one. This is in the chronological order. 2 Corinthians 13, and that's verse 5. It says here, put yourselves to the proof to see whether you are holding to the faith. Test yourselves. Surely you recognize this fact about yourselves, that Yehoshua HaMashiach is in you, unless indeed you cannot stand the test. Wow. When you read it that way, I mean, I'm not saying that what we have now is not true. It just, when it's put in a different way, presented that way, it really gives you like a different angle and understand it differently, or maybe even better. So Paul explained the significance of the phrase Yehoshua the Mashiach is in you in Galatians 2:20. Galatians 2 20. So we all know this is a very famous verse. But here it says here, um, so it is no longer I that live, but it is Mashiach who lives in me. And as for my present earthly life, I am living it by faith in the Son of Elohim, who loved me and gave himself for me. So it's pretty similar there. These 7 days of self-examination prove invaluable in helping us to devote our lives to Jehovah. This week-long period also pictures our eventual triumph over sin. Yeah, I did talk about that in a previous video. I said, that Yah had prophesied in Genesis 3 to Cain. He prophesied that, if you do well, will you not be, if you do rightly, will you not be accepted? And then said that line. That is it's very much misunderstood in the Masoretic text, and quite scary too. It's discouraging and scary. So I'm going to look at that. Let's just look at that quick before we continue on. I feel it's deep in my heart, it's very important that we don't let something like that can be very discouraging. So it's good to get a understanding of what that means. Genesis, it was chapter 3. It's at the end of the chapter. No, chapter 4. So it's Cain and Abel. And I'm going to read from the King James, just because that's probably the best Masoretic translation. And Jehovah said to Cain, why are you wroth? Why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, shall you not be accepted? And if you do not well, sin lies at the door, and unto you shall be his desire, and you shall rule over him. So that's only positive aspect, that last line. Whereas in the Septuagint, in the same verses 4 and 6, 5 and 6, says here, 6 and 7, and Jehovah Elohim said to Cain, why are you become very sorrowful? So he was really sad. And why is your countenance fallen? Have you not sinned, if you have brought it rightly, but not rightly divided it? So it's showing that Yah is very specific with his requirements. He's very detail-oriented. I think I mentioned this before, where the Ark of the Covenant was supposed to be on staves, and that was very detail-oriented, because if you carry it on anything else and someone touches it, they'll die. They're going to drop dead. And Yah had very explicit instructions as to sacrifices, and it says here exactly why he didn't accept it. And the Septuagint says here, you have missed the mark. Sin means to miss the mark. So his intention was right, but he brought it rightly, but he didn't rightly divide it. There was a process he had to go through for it to be accepted. So it wasn't accepted because of that part. He didn't divide it the right way. He might have given the worst part of his first fruits, or because it says, I think he's offering the vegetables, the fruits of the land, rather than Abel is giving sheep. It says that Abel is giving the sheep, whereas Cain is bringing produce. So it's sounding like, what's that squeaking? It's sounding like he didn't give the best that he had to offer. He didn't divide it rightly. Instead of giving the best, probably gave the worst, or it just wasn't. There's a certain specific command he was supposed to obey in this regard, and he didn't. And then this is the gist of it. He says here, be still. To you shall be his submission. And who is he that sin? To you shall be his submission. So sin will submit to you, and you shall rule over him. Unless he's talking about something else, but I'm pretty sure he's talking about sin. If it's not sin, maybe it's Satan, but overcome and to rule over him. He's prophesying that. That's what Yah just did. Um, where am I now? 7 days, yeah. So this feast of unleavened bread, you can say it's a fulfillment of what I just read, where sin will submit to you and we will rule over sin. Not only will sin submit to us, but we will rule over sin. And that is a big part of that is just keeping this feast, because you put away the sin. That's one vital step to repentance. And you get rid of the sin, you throw it out, you don't go back to it, you leave it in the dust and you go forward, and you're replacing it with something that, that nature abhors a vacuum, they say. So you're putting in righteousness, you're putting in the unleavened bread, the body of Yeshua. That's why he lives in us. So these 7 days of self-examination prove invaluable in helping us to devote our lives to Jehovah. This week-long period also pitches our eventual triumph over sin. So I know I'm supposed to just read the newsletter, but at times I do feel like Yah is moving me to just expand on something that is very important, and I feel like that's a very important topic. As Jehovah delivered the ancient Israelites from enslavement to Egypt, so he delivers us from our enslavement to sin. We learn by doing. We learn spiritual lessons by doing physical things. Performing the task of deleavening our homes reminds us to vigilantly watch for sinful thoughts and actions so we can avoid them. Jehovah knows that in spite of our good intentions, we all sin. Many years, I just want to repeat, we learn spiritual lessons by doing physical things and doing the feasts, keeping the Sabbath. A lot of things like wearing tzitzit, tzitzit. There's so many spiritual lessons that we can glean when we actually do these physical things. Because if we don't do them and you just say they're all spiritual, then you really miss out. So it's really important to actually do. And when we do them, there's a blessing. Besides physical blessings, there's a greater spiritual blessing that will be imparted to us. Because it says that a great understanding have those who keep the commandments. It's not that you have a great understanding and then you keep the commandments. No, by keeping the commandments, then you'll be given greater understanding. That's how it works. So it says here, Jehovah knows that in spite of our good intentions, we all sin. Many years after his conversion, Paul described the powerful human tendency to sin. I'm going to read that. Let me just see how much further we have to go. Okay, we're right at the end, so maybe 5 minutes left. So I'm just going to read these scriptures. They seem very important, especially in this topic. There's just something about this topic that has been plaguing mankind. But if we can get rid of that sin in our flesh, then we can be set apart, and Yah can then work with us to become as he is, because we are an incomplete creation. We look like him on the outside, but we are not like him on the inside. So that's what he's trying to do. He wants a heart transplant to put in us a new heart, a heart that'll always fear him and obey him, not just on the outside and just for the approval of men, but the inward man, the intentions of the heart will be pure and the motives will be pure and guided by love. And Yah tries the heart. He knows the heart. He knows the heart of men, which is our all. It is our all. It's who we are, is our hearts. We are a mixture of good and evil. Our hearts are good, but they're also evil. And that's the problem. We need to just be all good, take out the evil, the leaven, and put in the good. Romans 7:21. This then is the law that I find. I'll just say Torah. This then is the Torah that I find. When I want to do right, wrong presents itself. At heart, I delight in the Torah of Elohim, but throughout my body, I see a different Torah, one which is in conflict with the Torah accepted by my reason, and which endeavors to make me a prisoner to that Torah of sin, which exists throughout my body. Miserable man that I am, who will deliver me from the body that is bringing me to this death? Thank Elohim. There is deliverance through Yeshua HaMashiach, or Adonai. Well then, for myself, with my reason I serve the Torah of Elohim, but with my earthly nature, the Torah of sin. Paul knew life itself is a battle with sin. Yeah, every day is a battle, every moment. You think one day, I overcame this sin, but then the next day, a temptation will arise, and then you have to decide, which way do I go? You still have decisions to make. You can still fail, or you can be victorious, but it's a day-to-day battle. It's a lifelong battle we have with sin. The Bible speaks of the sin which so easily ensnares us, Hebrews 12:1. We have our own part to play in struggling to overcome sin. Yet, paradoxically, we must rely on Jehovah to help us. Paul explained this to the Philippians by telling them to Philippians 2, 12 to 13. Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always been obedient in the past, so now work out your own salvation with anxious care, not only when I am with you, but all the more now that I am absent. Remember, it is Elohim who, in his kindness, is at work within you, enabling you both to will and to work. I think I prefer the Masoretic or the common translation, but this is interesting, that perspective. It's just more poetic with the fear and trembling, and to will and to do is good pleasure, whereas here it's worded different or translated differently. Our observance of the days of unleavened bread helps us realize our need for Jehovah's help in overcoming our weaknesses. We can only do it with his help. We can only overcome with Jehovah's help. Just like Israel, we can only do this if we fulfill the meaning of the name Israel. He overcomes with the help of Elohim, with the help of Yahweh, of Jehovah. But on our own human efforts, we may be successful for an hour or a day or a week, but that's only temporary. It isn't long lasting. It is like a wave tossed to and fro, and based on our emotions or outward circumstances or life circumstances, or just very petty things. the cares of this life, it can overcome us. And we will see that, you know, our human efforts are just not enough. Although we're willing to, flesh is willing at some points too, but ultimately it is weak, and we really need to rely on His strength, not our own. Yet this feast is certainly a time for rejoicing, because Jehovah freely gives us the help we need. Yeshua, the Lamb of Jehovah, was sacrificed for the forgiveness of our sins, thus unleavening or cleansing our lives. He continues to help us live obediently through Jehovah's Spirit dwelling in us. Paul tells us in Romans chapter 2, verse 13, "It is not those who hear the words of Allah that are righteous before Elohim, but it is those who obey it that will be pronounced righteous." James tells us it is the doers of the law who will be justified. I think it's straightforward, but let's just see what it says here. It's after Acts in this Bible, so we're near the beginning. James is one of the earlier I want to say letter, but I'm not sure if it really is a letter. Oh, it is. Okay. The letter of James. Verse 22 is written at 44 AD. James 1:22. Put that message into practice, and do not merely listen to it, deceiving yourselves. Okay. Let's read what James also has to say about doing things. James 2:14 to 26. Oh, this is a doozy. Okay, here we go. Get ready. "My brothers, what is the good of a man saying that he has faith if he does not prove it by actions? Can such faith save him? Suppose some brother or sister should be in want of clothes and of daily bread, and one of you were to say to them, 'Go, and peace be with you. Shalom. Find warmth and food for yourselves.' And yet you are not to give them the necessaries of life. What good would it be to them? In just the same way, faith, if not followed by actions, is by itself a lifeless thing. Someone, indeed, may say, 'You are a man of faith, and I am a man of action.' Then show me your faith," I reply, "apart from any actions, and I will show you my faith by my actions. It is a part of your faith, is it not, that there is one Elohim? Good. Yet even the demons have that faith, and tremble at the thought. Now, do you really want to understand, you foolish man, how it is that faith without actions leads to nothing? Look at our ancestor, Abraham. Was not it the result of his actions that he was pronounced righteous after he had offered his son, Isaac, on the altar? You see how, in his case, faith and actions went together, that his faith was perfected as the result of his actions, and that in this way the words of Scripture came true. Abraham believed Elohim, and that was regarded by Elohim as righteousness, and he was called the friend of Elohim. You see then that it is as the result of his actions that a man is pronounced righteous, and not of his faith only. Was not it the same with the prostitute, Rahab? Was not it as the result of her actions that she was pronounced righteous after she had welcomed the messengers and hastened them away by a different road. Exactly as a body is dead without a spirit, so faith is dead without actions. So that's very powerful. That's the Westcott and Hort translation, translated into English, because Westcott and Hort is a Greek manuscript, as you will discover, and one of the oldest ones in existence. Some brethren, I like to think of it as a Septuagint of the New Testament. Some brethren do not believe we should keep the days of unleavened bread. Some do, but they say you do not have to remove the leaven from your homes. That doesn't make sense. How can you keep the feast without doing that? The Bible says we do have to keep this time, these feasts, forever, and that you do have to remove the leaven, and that by doing so, you're acting out your faith by your works. I am sharing this message now with you so that you have time to begin to clean before the days arrive. It sounds like he means clean your life, not just clean your house. You will see as you move your fridge and stove how the crud has piled up over time and how hard it is to remove. Actually, I was just cleaning my windowsill. There's so much like gunk and mildew, or it's like all this bacteria, mold pretty much. And then I sprayed it with Clorox. I wiped it, and to my surprise, it just came off quite easily. But it took a lot of Clorox. It took a lot of effort to wipe it up and, to actually look for it, to seek it out, go into the crevices, spray it, wipe it, and then, it's clean. But you have to look for it and eliminate it yourself. Kind of like sin. This is the same as sin speaking into your lives. Or sneaking, sorry. This is the same as sin sneaking into your lives and you not knowing it until one day it is exposed. Then you see how hard it is to remove or correct that sin. It is not easy. You will learn by doing. Please consider doing the necessary work in cleaning your home so that you will be ready for the Passover and the days of unleavened bread. And before I finish, I'm just going to say that, you won't know it, that sin has sneaked into your life until it is exposed. And there are examples of, like in my life, for example, I know my sin. I know my sins. And, they're not exposed per se, but they're exposed to me in my mind. I just keep them secret. But then when they're exposed in a way that you can't ignore it anymore, for example, if someone either calls you out on it or you find out someone else in the faith is dealing with the exact same thing, exact same problem, it moves you like it moved me to repentance. Or another alternative reality or possibility is none of those happen, but you're so convicted in your heart that, I've been living this way for too long. I'm in the faith, but I'm still doing this specific thing, that specific sin I keep doing. I don't know why I can't overcome it, but I'm just going to break down because I don't know how to deal with it. So you break down, your heart is broken, your spirit is contrite, and you turn to Yah with everything. You seek him with all your heart, and only then do you find him, and only then will he be able to help you, and only then will you be able to overcome by his help, because you've been broken down and you are basically turning to him as your savior, as your deliverance from the sin that has beset you and has plagued you for so long. And you're sinking to the point that all you have left is your nose, and you're just staying alive, but you're reaching out with everything you have to the hand of Elohim, and he pulls you right out of there. but it's a process. He can't pull you out all at once. He pulls you out, and it's up to you as to whether you will step forward or keep backsliding. So, anyhow, always remember that as you move closer to Jehovah, He moves closer to you. Wow, isn't that funny? The line up with what I just said. It's up to you how much you move. When you stop, so does He, and He waits for you to make the next move. And inversely, if you moved closer to the enemy, He's just waiting for you. He's ready to be your friend and lead you to the way of death. So, the more you learn and practice, the more that will be revealed to you, just as I said earlier. But if you do nothing, you learn nothing. Or if you do sin, then you progressively get worse. So may your spring cleaning be bountiful in teaching. So may your spring cleaning be bountiful in teaching you many lessons from the scriptures. That's the end. Okay. There are 9 comments. How did that happen? How did everyone comment? Okay. What? Am I behind? Okay, I guess I'm behind. It says March 6th, but there are comments. And it is March 6th, but there are comments from February. I don't know how that happened. Let me just go through them really quick and see if anything to glean from there. David Smith. Just my thoughts on who ascended to heaven. Hope it's not about Enoch or Elijah. Okay, it doesn't say anything about Enoch or Elijah. Whoa, what is he saying here? Okay, what's he saying here? Just my thoughts, okay. Excuse me. Okay, this person is arguing that he's making a point that when he led captivity captive, he didn't bring the saints into heaven, but he led captive the forces of evil. That's his argument here. That's his interpretation of it. And to be honest, I really don't know what to say about that. It was only after his resurrection he could have possibly descended into the grave to have led captivity captive, because after all, he was dead 3 days and 3 nights. Yeshua went into the earth to declare his victory over Satan and death to fallen angels, demons, and the forces of darkness, not into purgatory or hell, to release the saints. I don't think that's what Joseph was saying. I think he's saying that those who rose from the dead, that's when he was crucified, and when he let out the big yell, people came out of their graves, and those are the ones he brought to heaven with him. Okay, it says their bodies arose like Lazarus out of the graves, opened by the earthquake. There's no indication these saints were resurrected with a glorified body, and it says they went into the city, not to heaven with Yeshua. I'd have to agree with him on that point, but we'll see where this is going. Paul details the order and states Messiah is the first fruit, and the rest of the first fruits will be at his coming. But every man in his own order, Messiah the first fruits, afterward that are Messiahs at his coming. He says here, you are a bit confusing to me anyway regarding who went to heaven. First he said, Yeshua led a host of captives from the grave when he went to heaven that day. Then after explaining the Elijah and Enoch myths, you say clearly Yeshua was the only human being who had ascended into heaven. The phrase who is in heaven lets us know that this is written by the Apostle John after Mashiach's return to heaven. So even as late as this statement, no human being, that includes Enoch, had ascended into heaven. Then after talking about Lazarus and the rich man, you revert back to saying the next morning, when Yeshua ascended to heaven, these saints also went with him as the first fruits. That contradicts 1 Corinthians 15:23. So either he took saints with him or he alone ascended to heaven. It can't be both. I don't know about that. We'll see the answer. Shabbat Shalom, David. You said it yourself. Messiah, the first fruits, plural. Those who came out of the grave after his resurrection. Then those who will be raised up at his coming at the end of this sixth millennium. There are no commas in Hebrew. So, I mean, is that a salvation issue? I don't think so, but it's an interesting question. Elijah and Enoch, they went to the first heaven, which is the sky. They didn't go up to the second or third heavens. That was pretty clear, but I don't know. You know what? Maybe it's not that clear. At least for Elijah, I'm pretty sure, he stayed on earth. Enoch, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Time will tell. George, Shabbat Shalom. Our elders are busy in heaven, presenting our prayers to Jehovah on behalf. Okay. These were the first handful sheaf of the barley waved by Yeshua to his Father in heaven. We are the rest of the first fruit barley harvest. From heaven they will be brought down. Okay, I don't see how that's really a... There are only two wave offerings. One on wave sheaf day, when the first group from Adam to Yeshua's death were then raised up and ascended on high with him. Of that group came out the 24 elders who are now in heaven. That makes sense, actually. Again, this was told to us in Matthew 27:50. The tombs were open. Many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep arose. Coming out of the tomb, they went to the holy city, appeared to many. Before this time, no man had gone to heaven, but all were dead in the faith and slept in their graves, awaiting the resurrection. You're correct in the next wave offering, being Shavuot. And this is the one that those in the faith will be raised first, and those of us still alive are changed in a twinkling of an eye, and both meet him in the air. Then the rest of the dead will be raised at the end of the seventh millennium. Carline, thank you, Joe. Yeah, that's a good thing about the parable of the Lazarus and the rich man. Lazarus died after he went to Europe and began to teach Torah there. He went to Europe? He died, and like all those who have died in the faith, since Yeshua came out of the grave, they wait for the wheat harvest of Shavuot that is to come. I believe in 2033. This is the next harvest of first fruits, the next wave offering. Okay, I'm not familiar with the Lazarus being in Europe part, but it's interesting. And then David Smith comes back with the word study. Okay, I'm going to look this up because this is getting kind of heated with this let captivity captive situation here. We have the time at Shabbat, so let's see. It says here... Okay, this is from Psalm 68:18. Ow. Let me just look up and have it on my parallel Bible thing. Psalm 68. Oh, I didn't realize I was so close to the camera. Psalm 68. All right. Let's see if it'll load for me. Psalm 60. And I think it was 18. It's getting late, eh? Okay. And so in the, it says here, you have ascended on high, it's Masoretic. You have led captivity captive. You have received gifts for men, yes, for the rebellious, also that Yah Elohim might dwell among them. Septuagint, you are gone up on high. You have led captivity captive. You have received gifts for men, yes, for they were rebellious, that you might dwell among them. Okay. No problem there. Colossians 2:15. Okay, no. I'm trying to make sense of this. Okay, 1 Corinthians 15, 23. Let's look at that. First Corinthians 15, 23. Boy, I didn't think the comments would be so, would extend this video, but it did. But each in his proper order. Mashiach, the first fruits. Afterwards, at his coming, those who belong to the Mashiach. Then will come the end, when he surrenders the kingdom to, okay. So, well, the way I understand this, the way I read this is Mashiach is the first fruits. So he's the very first one. And then afterwards, when he comes back, those will belong to him. So that's the, that would be the first resurrection, the completion of the first fruit. So Mashiach, Yehoshua, Mashiach is the wave sheaf offering. That's who he is. That's my understanding. He is that wave sheaf, and then Pentecost, Shavuot, will be the rest of those who are being called now to be in the first resurrection. That's the way I understand it. But time will tell. It could be wrong. It's not something for me to really fully understand at this time, but I mean, time will tell. But it does say, I think it does say in Revelation that he's coming with his saints. So who are those saints if there was no one else who came with them, right? That's a lot of questions there. Are those his angels, or are those just the ones who apparently rose with him when he ascended to heaven too? Where am I now? Oh, I'm at David Smith's comment here. And then he also has a parallel verse. I'm just going to look at that quick. 1 Thessalonians 4:14. That's from David Smith. 1 Thessalonians 4. Let's just see what it says before we close up. Didn't think the comments would take so long, but here we are. Sometimes you'll have a short newsletter, but then the comments are longer than they're as long or longer than the newsletter, which rarely happens. But page 281, Thessalonians in this Bible is right after Acts, or after James. So Acts, and then James, and Thessalonians is after James. And that was chapter 4, verse 14. Let's see what it says. He's trying to prove his point. For as we believe that Yehoshua died and rose again, so also we believe that Elohim will bring with Yehoshua those who through him have passed to their rest. Okay, I don't see the... So he's going to bring with him Yeah, no, that I know there's a scripture it says he's going to come again, but then those who are alive and remain will be caught up together with them in the clouds. So it's like people are coming out of their graves, and those who are alive will also be transformed at that same time. So it sounds like no one is getting a head start except for Yahushua. He's the first of the first fruits. So that would make sense too. I can see where he's coming from. But once again, this is something that time will prove. E. Matthew 27:52. If Yeshua is preached that he has been raised, do some of you say there's no resurrection of the dead? If there's no resurrection, then if Yeshua is not risen, okay, I don't see the point of that one. Greetings again. This is David Smith again. There are only two wave offerings. The first fruits of the harvest is a single sheaf of barley. The first fruits, signified by a single sheaf, is not the whole harvest. It is the very first fruit taken from the harvest. The single first fruit is not the entire harvest, but only the very first fruit from the harvest represents the rest of the harvest, which will later be reaped. That's the way I see that too. Messiah is the first fruits, represent the whole harvest. Messiah, first fruits, is holy, making us also holy. And being in Messiah, we are made alive. When? At his coming. By claiming that all the saints from Adam to Yeshua are actually the first fruits, wave sheaf offering is rendering its meaning empty. Think of it, how can the whole harvest symbolize the whole harvest? That would be ridiculous. The first fruits means all fruits, or more aptly means nothing. What do the scriptures say regarding the whereabouts of the saints after Yeshua ascended to heaven? It says here, David is not ascended into the heavens. It's dead and buried. When you think David should have made it in the first resurrection? It's got a good point. The Old Testament saints would have to wait for a perfection, so all will be perfected at once at Yeshua's return. What promise did they receive? Eternal life. Agreed. Those who are called may receive the promise. Okay. So he's talking about Hebrews 11. These all died. An hour is coming when all those in tombs will hear his voice and they will come out. So yeah, this is not something that is so clear cut, but when that event happens, the resurrection, the first resurrection, the first fruits, we will know what is the truth. I cannot say that I fully understand this topic, but I do know that when he comes again, we will be like he is, because we're going to see him, we're going to be like he is, we're going to rise. Hopefully we qualify and we have fought the good fight and we can meet him in the air. And that's the start of a new chapter. Okay, that's the end of this live stream. This newsletter is done. I think it's been 2 hours, maybe more. 2 hours and 9 minutes. Okay. So thank you for watching. Shabbat Shalom. And look forward to the chapter summary. I haven't done one for a while, but we're right at the end. I think we're at the last 4 or 5 chapters. So I'll do one, Yah willing. If there's an opportunity that presents itself, I will do one tomorrow. And I've started a new thing where I'm reading the Book of Jubilees really calmly, really quietly. They call it ASMR. But it's, I thought, if I could preach the word or read the word, but also get people who look for those videos because they find them relaxing. But why just waste an opportunity to just not read the word? And in this case, the Book of Jubilees. So that's all to say. And once again, Shabbat Shalom. May Jehovah protect you. May He bless you. May He have mercy on you. He set His holy angels over you to protect you from the calamities, and may you may He give you a heart that is towards Him, a heart like David's, that will love Him with all your mind, all your strength, all your soul. That you will have a heart to be like a sheep, to follow our shepherd, Yoshua HaMashiach, and that we would have a heart to love each other and to love His Torah, just like David did, just like King David. To love His Torah and let it be our meditation, our obsession all the day, in our thoughts from day to night. Every waking hour, even in our dreams, I'm going to dream about Torah. And that's really great to be so immersed in it, and not just to understand what is expected of us, but to do it, and we get greater understanding and true happiness. Not just understanding what it is we need to do and why, but we understand the wisdom of how it fits in with life, because there are consequences and repercussions, and there are like ripples in the water that have a great effect on the world we live in, not just the physical, but even the spiritual realm. Things that we do when we obey and give our all to Yah, we fear Him, we reverence His name, and we obey the commandments with a pure and a clean heart, like Job, like Noah, like Abraham. Um, and Yeshua was the example, the prime example of how to do this, to really fulfill the law, not just in its physical application, but the spiritual. That's why, he was an example for us, a shining example of how Adam must be, meaning all mankind shouldn't just look like God, like Elohim, but must behave like Him, must think like Him, must talk like Him, must do like Him. He was the ultimate of the completeness of what Yah had intended for us to be, not just looking like Him, but like Him in our hearts and our inward parts. And the only other person I could say is similar was King David, who had a heart after his own heart, molded after his own heart. Yes, he made mistakes. Yes, he sinned. Yes, he came up short, but ultimately his heart, his intentions, was to do what was pleasing in the sight of Yah. He was obsessed with Torah. He loved it so much. It was his MO. That's the way he rolled. But being a man, we're distracted by our eyes, distracted by our armies. If you have an army, you look at, or whatever, your bank account, you're distracted by numbers sometimes. And we can sometimes erroneously put our faith in those things, forgetting the source of those blessings. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.